Alright fellas, it is finally time for painting and weathering, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. With this build I am going to rely solely on post-painting effects. This means that the paint application should be straightforward. I started with the insignia white from MRP and applied it to all areas that should receive this color. That's mostly on the bottom of the airplane, reaching to the wing folds and also on the radar dome. As with all MRP colors I have used so far, I can say that this paint is spectacular and the ease of use of pre-diluted paint is also very welcome. My preference has always been to start with the lightest and end with the darkest color of the camouflage. This build is no exception, and the next color in line is the intermediate blue from MRP. Here I elected to develop my freehand demarcation line airbrushing skills. I still have a lot to improve, but overall not a bad result. For the top color I used MRP's Sea Blue. Again I practiced my freehanding painting skill, but for the curve below the cockpit I cheated a little bit. There I used masking tape to establish the curve, and after the removal of the tape I feathered the hard edge freehand. All of that to get the shape right. The 3-color camo scheme actually is a 4-color one, but the two dark blue colors are so similar that I decided to assume that the sun fading will make them even more similar and I can get away with just one color. Again, this information can be found on the tailhooks blog, which will be linked below the video. Here I'm using my new 0.3mm airbrush from Gallery. So far I find it to be a very good tool, and I can recommend it to anyone on the market for a new airbrush. I will leave a link for it in the description under this video. Also, I removed the masking. Most of it will not be needed anymore, and also when you have flexible masking material, paint that got on it will sooner or later start to flake off. So I decided to remove that in advance and apply new masking whenever or if it will be necessary. The wheels are equipped with masks, so painting is easy. Just like with the canopy, the masks fit precisely. The color of choice is a surprise to exactly nobody, Tamiya Rubber Black. That I also slapped on the propellers, and as it turns out on the hub. You may remember that I carefully painted that in 2 metal shades and even applied a wash. Next I added a little bit of light gold grey in the rubber black. That lighter shade I applied on the contact patch of the tires and also faded it in from the tip and the trailing edge of the propeller blades. Not very obvious of an effect, but still looks nice. Time to start breaking up the monotonous surface. I mixed satin varnish, a drop of the base dark blue color and a drop of buff. After that I started masking around selected panels and gave them a light filter type layer with the mixture. My goal is to make the surface non-uniform, but still cohesive with the overall base coat. This is not going to happen right away, but we are off to a good start. After I got all the targeted panels done, this looks way too stark. I wanted the effect to be visible, but I also wanted to get the finish to a place where it will not be immediately obvious what is going on. So to bring back some color in those heavily desaturated panels, I applied a blend coat of the base blue color. For the next batch of panels I used a mixture of the base color and bronze green, and then base color plus red brown. I also tested some other effects, but they will come after the decals, because otherwise I think the decals will look out of place. I like this paneling technique a lot, and despite all of the masking I think it's quite efficient time wise. Next comes the paneling on the intermediate blue. Here I used the same secondary colors as on the dark blue, but in smaller quantities, because the intermediate blue is easier to tint. Most of the work was on the underside of the wings, but some was done on the sides of the fuselage and on the rudder. For the white portion of the belly, I did not do much paneling work. To be fair, the result is not adequate. Next time, instead of tinting with colors, I will go grayscale. In any case, this will be the dirtiest part of the airplane, so it doesn't really matter. With the paneling done, I applied an overall gloss coat, and this will have a full weekend to cure to obtain its fullest toughness in order to cope with the decaling chemicals and the washes. Slowly chipping away from the decal sheet. Here are a few noteworthy thoughts in my head, so before I forget, it is always a treat to work with cartograph decals. The inclusion of those in any kit box elevates it to another level. The open ammo bay doors pose a challenge with the left-hand wing insignia. Fortunately, the bay doors sit almost flush when closed, and I was able to place the decal over them. Once the decal softening solution was finished doing what it does, I carefully cut out the decal around the doors and removed them. This adds quite a bit of complexity in my opinion, which is welcome. There are a lot of service stencils, all on white background. I cannot recall seeing that on other models, but I will assume it has to do with the night fighter role of this aircraft. I am not super excited about the decal walkways, but out of the box, we'll have to let it go. Finally, the decals are all set in place. They behaved beautifully and I had very little issues. So, all is good. With that task out of the way, I started applying the panel line washes. For the white, I chose grey panel line accent color from Tamiya. The goal is mostly to outline the details, which it does pretty well in my opinion. For the intermediate blue, I used the dark grey variant of the same Tamiya product, and I think it looks suitable. For the dark blue, I'm not sure what to use yet. I know that the dark grey will not work, and I don't want to use straight black. So I think my mix of Starship Field and black oil paints will work really well as a wash on the dark blue camo. Not overly dark, but still makes the panel lines stand out a bit. Also, removing the excess oil wash with dry Q-tip does not remove the excess entirely, leaving behind a trace of some dusty, grimy goodness. I like the result a lot. Non-intrusive, but still evident. After overnight rest, the oil paints were ready for an overall coat of flat varnish. This will serve as a base for the weathering to follow, and once again the GX113 Mr. Rapid Thinner combo did not disappoint. The Gallery Mobius 0.3 airbrush also performed flawlessly. The watercolor pencils will be the weapon of choice for the majority of the weathering this time. I have no evidence for the amount of paint distress I am putting on this aircraft, so it is mostly under the artistic license. I used a lot of colors, but mainly it was green pencil which was applied in order to simulate some exposed primer. On its own, the color did not really cut the mustard. After I applied silver on top of it though, it all started to make more sense. For that weathering style, I made a dedicated tutorial, link for which you can find in the description. The top side, as far as pencils are concerned, is done. Along with the paint distress, I added some dust accumulations and streaking. I might have gotten slightly overboard with the weathering on this one, but since this is a subjective matter and the fact that I tested a technique I haven't used before, I will take it. let's get the Bellish Moods application underway. To be honest, I get a lot of enjoyment out of those watercolor pencils. Stacking layers, stacking colors, blending, streaking, stippling, all with one product. Does not get simpler than that, I guess. On the central section of the belly I added some more colors to the sepia to get a bit of variation. Behind the main spar I added some dark olive green in search for a color better representing grime coming out of an engine and maybe some raw fuel. Here and there I drew small streaks with the black pencil. On the foldable portion of the wings I added some dusting, for which I used sand color. I imagine that when the wings are folded, the moisture drives the dust collected in the crevices downwards. The same color for the same reason I used on the sides of the fuselage, towards the tail. Here, however, I decided that the dirt should accumulate at the lower panel line of each panel. I hope that my explanation makes sense. In order to continue with the belly weathering, I had to install the landing gear. This step is actually pretty easy because the pegs of the gear leg fit snugly into their corresponding holes. Then I glued in the two panels on each bay that complete the gear leg surrounds. Obviously those have quite stark difference in their appearance compared to everything around them. This will be the case for the gear bay doors too. I think that I can do a better job weathering those if they are glued in place. But first I decided to do the exhaust and heat stains because the bay doors can obstruct the airbrush access. So for that I mixed Tamiya smoke with some flat varnish and applied that for the exhaust stains. Behind the heat exchanger vents, behind the cowl flaps and also behind the gun barrel ports. The exhaust stacks got some soot by their tips as well. All of this ties every previous weathering measure together and I think all I need to do is to take care of the bay doors. The installation of the gear bay doors went reasonably smooth. I had a little bit of an issue with the pegs that are molded together with the hydraulic cylinders actuating the door movement. The corresponding hole in the wheel well is quite shallow and I had to be extra patient with it. But as far as gear bay doors go, not too bad. The rears were also somewhat troublesome, simply because there is little to no space to work. After the gear bay doors were all set, I blended them with the rest of the weathering. Using the black watercolor pencil, I did some speckling near the exhaust stacks to simulate the oil that those engines spit out. I installed the exhaust stacks in place. To fit them, I had to cut small portions of their pegs. Otherwise, the whole stack cannot get into position. Or at least, I did not want to force things. To increase the oily appearance in this area, I applied black wash in a few spots. After I removed the masks, I decided to do some weathering on the transparencies. Have never done that, so it's maybe missed opportunity for some extra realism. The fact that the pencil weathering is totally harmless also was a factor in my decision. Other than that, I masked and painted the fuel cap in red, and then stained the area around the cap using Starship Base Lodge oil paint. Also, using Tamiya's black accent color, I outlined the cap, and while the wash was still wet, I dragged it downwards for extra layer of grime. Painting the recognition lights almost turned into a disaster. I got lucky with the red paint, which almost came out of the surrounding rim. Other than screwing up majorly, I did some weathering on the wheels. On the tire, by the rim lip, I used pigment from the sand color pencil. That I blended outwards in the direction of the thread, creating subtle streaks. That effect, I imagine, can be caused by the centrifugal forces when the wheel rotates, pushing the dirt out. On the rim, I used sepia pencil pigment diluted almost to a wash consistency. I was thinking maybe to do some black brake dust like sedimentation, but then I realized that this airplane stops via its hook, so I doubt too much brakes are used. But I may be wrong. Attaching the wheels to the gear legs is very easy. Not too tight, not too loose, just the perfect amount of friction between the rims and the peck of the gear leg in order to provide rotation. So I first attached the rear wheel and then dropped a small amount of Mr. Cement Deluxe in the holes of the rims. After I installed the wheels on the legs, I quickly turned the model and placed it on the bench, rotating the wheel so that the flat area is on the ground. This worked out very well and the stance is nice. After this small victory, I added the antenna on the spine and the pitot tubes on the belly. A little bit of weathering later, I left the model to rest before the final stretch. Next order of business was to attach the gun bay doors, for which first I glued the mechanisms. The instructions are a bit vague on the actual locations where the mechanism should be glued inside the gun base. To make sure that they are in the right place, I measured with the larger section of the door in place. Once the mechanisms lined up with the opening in the door, I was then sure it will fit. I gave the glue a few minutes to set and then I installed the larger door sections. After that glue was set, I installed the folded door sections and the small doors over the ammo belt ports. With that done, it was time to assemble the propeller. The hub is split into two parts, on one of which we have square indentations for each blade. On each blade we have square key that corresponds to the indentation. With that, the installation is pretty much hassle-free, and in a matter of couple of minutes the propeller is done. The fit with the engine is pretty good. I decided not to use any glue here. The propeller will not fall, and in the same time I can have it removed for transportation. The sliding portion of the canopy I also decided not to glue, but for different reason. I simply could not figure out a way to glue it. Apparently it was designed to stay closed rather than open. As it is often the case, the journey is far more significant as an experience than the destination. In this regard, this build was a real treat. Most of the assemblies are well engineered, and the worst of them were in fact decent. The addition of well-represented engine, non-neutral control surfaces, open gun and ammo base contributed to an interesting to look at scale model. And I think this is a wrap. Thank you very much for watching this video, and until next time, happy modeling fellas!